He wasn't even in the MVP conversation. No All-NBA team, just another mid-tier scorer until April. Then he flipped a switch, turned into a monster, and left the league in absolute chaos. One by one, top seeds crumbled, and by the time they figured out what had hit them, it was already over. This is the story of how Jimmy Butler became the most feared man in the 2023 NBA playoffs. You know what's the truth? Jimmy Butler wasn't even in the MVP conversation during the 2022-23 season. He averaged a solid 22.9 points per game, shot efficiently, played tough defense, but nothing about his numbers screamed league destroyer. In a season dominated by jaw-dropping stat lines from guys like Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and Luka Doncic, Jimmy was just there. Respectable, consistent, intense, but not terrifying. The Miami Heat, they looked cooked. A few moments into the season, they were barely above .500. Even in the end, they finished with a 44-38 record, good enough for just 7th in the East. And they didn't even clinch a playoff spot directly. They had to scrape through the play-in tournament and nearly got bounced. Against the Hawks, they looked flat, and against the Bulls, they needed a late game surge just to survive. At that point, the narrative was clear. The Heat were done, washed, too old, too mid. And about Jimmy, people respected him as a dogged competitor, a locker room leader, the kind of guy that you want on your team, sure, but no one was circling him on the calendar like Steph, Giannis, or KD. He was seen as a guy who gave you playoff effort in January, but would run out of gas by spring. Not a first option who can dominate a series. He had no shiny accolades that year, no media hype. He didn't even make the All-NBA team. But here's the thing, that's exactly how he likes it. Quiet, overlooked, slept on. Because when Jimmy's underestimated, that's when you're in the most danger. Before Jimmy Butler became a playoff nightmare, he was one bad day away from going fishing. In the first play-in game, the Heat faced the Atlanta Hawks and got cooked. Miami looked disjointed, lazy, even scared. They got out-rebounded like it was a high school scrimmage. And Jimmy, he was off. 21 points, inefficient, forgettable. The Heat lost by 11 in their own building. And suddenly, the regular season meh turned into a full-blown panic. Their last shot to make the playoffs came against the Chicago Bulls, Jimmy's former team. And this time, he didn't just mess around. The game was ugly, gritty, and a grind. Miami trailed deep into the fourth. Fans were halfway to calling the season a failure. But then, Jimmy switched on. He attacked the rim, forced fouls, hit clutch buckets, and dragged the Heat to a 102-91 win early. Survived by fingernails. After the game, Jimmy didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. Instead, he gave us the quote that should have sent chills through the league. "I don't care what people think, I'm going to win." That wasn't just confidence, it was a warning. From that moment on, Jimmy stopped playing basketball like a professional. He started playing like a man possessed. The Heat weren't supposed to be here. Jimmy Butler didn't care. And what comes next? Nobody was ready for it. The Milwaukee Bucks were supposed to be untouchable. With 58 wins, the best record in the league, and a roster built like a championship machine, featuring two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo and one of the most suffocating defenses in the NBA. This wasn't just a team, it was a wall. The Heat, a lowly 8th seed that barely survived the play-in. Analysis predicted a gentleman's sweep if Miami was lucky, but Jimmy Butler doesn't do predictions, he does chaos. In Game 1, Giannis went down with a back injury, and Jimmy pounced. He dropped 35 points, completely unfazed by the Bucks' vaunted defenders. Miami stole the game on the road, shocking the league. Of course, everyone shrugged it off. Wait till Giannis is back, they said. Game 2 came, and the Bucks blew the Heat out, and the world exhaled. Maybe that Game 1 win was just a fluke. Game 3 said otherwise. Back in Miami, Jimmy led the Heat to a commanding win, dropping another 30-piece, but it was Game 4 that shattered everything. Jimmy Butler didn't just play basketball, he erupted. He scored a jaw-dropping 56 points, the 4th highest playoff performance in NBA history, and single-handedly erased a 14-point fourth-quarter deficit. He hit shot after shot, with Jrue Holiday draped all over him, yelling, "This is my shit," to the home crowd. It was ruthless, cold, surgical. The Bucks weren't just losing, they were unraveling. Then came Game 5. the dagger. Giannis returned. The Bucks built a 16-point lead, and it looked like the series might stretch. Jimmy had other plans. He exploded for 42 points, including the game-tying alley-oop. Yes, he called for it mid-air and forced overtime. The Heat closed it out, eliminating the #1 seed in 5 games. Jrue Holiday, known for his elite defense, looked shell-shocked post-game. He's in attack mode the whole game. He admitted he's not passive, he's not waiting for anything. But it was Giannis' post-game quote that defined the upset. When asked if the season was a failure, he replied, "There's no failure in sports. Iconic? Yes, but haunting too." Because for Milwaukee, this wasn't just a loss. It was an implosion, a complete mental and physical breakdown. Jimmy Butler didn't just win the series, he mentally dismantled one of the NBA's best teams, averaging 37.6 points for the series. Butler turned the playoffs into his personal vendetta, and in just 5 games, playoff Jimmy stopped being a meme and became a myth. After dismantling the #1 seed, you would think that the Heat might slow down, but next up was the New York Knicks, fresh off their first playoff series win in a decade. Madison Square Garden was rocking. Knicks fans were buzzing, and the media, they were desperate for New York to be back. The narrative was juicy. The gritty, blue-collar Knicks against the underdog Heat. But while the Knicks were talking, Jimmy Butler was plotting. Game 1 set the tone. Jimmy dropped 25 points, grabbed 11 rebounds, and hit clutch shots to silence the Garden. But late in the game, he landed awkwardly on Josh Hart's foot and rolled his ankle badly. He limped through the rest of the quarter, clearly in pain, but refused to come out. Miami held on to the win, and Jimmy walked off like a man trying to hide a war wound. The ankle sprain should have changed the series. It didn't. He missed game 2, but when he returned in game 3, still hurt, still hobbling, and still dominating. Butler didn't rely on sheer athleticism. He picked up his spots, played smart, and controlled the game like a chess master. He made surgical passes, forced mismatches, and drained mid-range daggers in crunch time. His defense, still reckless. Know about his confidence, ice cold. What made it worse for the Knicks was Jimmy's face. Stone cold, unreadable, stoic. He didn't talk trash, he didn't need to. He let the game speak. He hit back-breaking shots and walked away like he was bored. That kind of quiet confidence is infuriating to the opponents and devastating to team morale. In 5 games, Jimmy sent the Knicks packing, and he did it all less than 100%, without ego, without theatrics, just pure, suffocating dominance. The Garden wanted a war. Jimmy gave them a funeral. By now, playoff Jimmy isn't just a nickname, it's a transformation. During the regular season, Butler is a solid, efficient scorer, averaging around 22.9 points, making smart plays and defending hard, but come playoff time, that version dies. In its place emerges something else entirely, a cold-blooded assassin who averages nearly 32 points, takes over fourth quarters, and drags his team through fire with a look that says, "I've already been through worse." The numbers tell only half the story. The real power of playoff Jimmy is mental. He doesn't blink, doesn't complain, doesn't care about narratives or trash talk, or how deep the other team is. When the lights get brighter, Butler gets scarier. Teammate says it all the time. He becomes a different beast. Coach Eric Spoelstra called him one of the greatest competitors in the history of the league. Not today, not this season, in the league history. And here's what makes it even wilder. Jimmy isn't the fastest. He's not the highest jumper. He doesn't shoot 40% from 3. By traditional superstar standards, he's mid-tier. But what separates him is that lethal combination of basketball IQ, pain tolerance, and that killer instinct you just can't teach. He knows exactly when to turn it on, exactly where to exploit a defense, and exactly how to mentally fracture a superstar across 7 games. Look at who he elevates. Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Max Strus, guys the average fan couldn't pick out of a lineup, but under Jimmy's wing, they played like seasoned killers. Because Jimmy doesn't just drop buckets, he builds belief. He doesn't need to yell, he doesn't choose MVPs or all-star votes. He just shows up when it matters the most and breaks your soul. Playoff Jimmy isn't a fluke. It's not luck. It's not adrenaline. It's the version of Butler that lives in the shadows all year and wait for April to come out and feast. The 2023 Eastern Conference Finals were a sequel nobody expected, and Jimmy Butler was ready to rewrite the ending. It was the Heat versus the Celtics. Again, a rematch of the 2022 series that ended in heartbreak for Miami when Butler missed a go-ahead 3 in Game 7. This time, Jimmy wasn't leaving it to chance. Miami stormed to a shocking 3-0 lead. Boston, with their star-studded roster, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart, looked stunned. The Heat were out hustling, out shooting, and flat out outwilling them. But then, the momentum shifted. The Celtics clawed back, won Game 4, then Game 5. Game 6 came, and with 3 seconds left, Miami had the lead. One defensive rebound away from the finals. Then, in the cruelest twist of fate, Derek White flew in for a buzzer-beating tip-in. Celtics win. Series tied 3-3. All the momentum with Boston. Everyone thought that it was over for the Heat. They were headed back to TD Garden for Game 7, the same building where their 2022 dreams had died. The Celtics were younger, taller, deeper, and red hot. Miami was all banged up, exhausted, and emotionally gutted. But Jimmy looked calm, like a hitman who just got a contract renewed. And when the lights came on, Jimmy Butler ruined Boston's season. He dropped 28 points, made the right plays, hit dagger mid-range shots, and once again turned undrafted players like Caleb Martin into flamethrowers. The Heat didn't just beat the Celtics, they humiliated them 103-84 in their house with everything on the line. The same Celtics team that forced a historic Game 7 comeback got shattered by a team that had no business even being there. And at the center of that storm was Jimmy, stoic, surgical, and utterly unbothered by the noise. He was awarded the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, holding the trophy with zero emotion, like it was just a part of the job. That's the terrifying part. Butler made it look routine. The Celtics had one of the most talented rosters in the league, but talent doesn't scare Jimmy Butler. Doubt does. And the second you give it to him, he burns your dynasty to the ground. Championship or not, what Jimmy Butler did in the 2023 playoffs was mythology in the making. The Miami Heat weren't just underdogs. They were the 8th seed, barely surviving in the play-in. They had no all-NBA sidekick, no deep bench full of stars, just a gritty roster built from undrafted hustlers, and one man with the will to bend reality, Jimmy Butler. He didn't just beat teams, he slayed giants. Took out the #1 seed Bucks with a 56-point masterclass and 42-point dagger to close. Overcame the Knicks with one good ankle, crushed the Celtics in Boston after they stormed back from a 0-3 hole, and dragged his team all the way to the NBA Finals. Jimmy gave us iconic moments, a 56-piece against the league's best defense, the cold stare after every kill shot, and the stone-faced mic drops like, I don't care what people think, I'm going to win. He didn't need a ring to cement his run as legendary, but legacy isn't always about trophies. Sometimes it's about how many titans you bury on your way there. And in 2023, Jimmy Butler turned the playoffs into his personal graveyard. Jimmy Butler may never win a regular season MVP, and that's fine because he's something rare, a player who terrifies contenders when it matters the most. No super team, no excuses, just pure, relentless willpower. The 2023 playoffs weren't just a fluke. They were a warning. Don't ever let the seedings fool you. If Jimmy's in the bracket, nobody's safe.